Our next speaker for the day is going to be Dara Ryan. Well, Dara is a deputy head at Nahda Academy in Jeddah. Trained in UK where she completed her PGCE and has also taught in Ireland and South Korea. She loves working in bilingual school where the British curriculum is blended with Arabic culture and Islamic values. Dara is passionate advocate of maths mastery approach, was delighted to achieve the first maths no problem accreditation in Saudi Arabia for Nahda Academy. Let's go ahead and welcome Dara Ryan on board.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Saudi School Summit. My name is Dara Ryan and I am the Deputy Head of School at Nahda Academy in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Today I'm going to be talking about how we as educators need to develop a future for our students and how we need to stop and take a pause. We need to think for a minute about how we're going to do this because the students that we are teaching today are not the same as they were when we were teaching them in 2019. We are united in the fact that the whole world has been going through a similar experience, and there's no doubt that every child has suffered disruption to their education. But every experience is very unique, and we need to be thinking about the hidden impact that the pandemic has had on our students, our future leaders, so that we can adapt our delivery for their education accordingly. So just to put my experience into context, let me tell you a little bit about my own school, Nahda Academy. It's a relatively new international school that opened in 2017. This is a boutique school with a very small student number. It's a bilingual school that follows the British national curriculum while providing Arabic and a focus on Islamic values. Our students are predominantly Saudi students who come from wealthy and powerful families of Jeddah. Every school has a vision that provides a vivid picture of the school's values and objectives. By outlining what the school is trying to achieve, all of the stakeholders in the school community, teachers, students, families, and administration can work together in a common direction towards growth. Our vision at Nahda Academy is that we envision a place that enables every Saudi young person to realize their full potential as a Saudi national and as future leaders, who are also part of a wider global community, each in their own way. This vision has recently been challenged by the changes globally that we have been going through due to the pandemic, and our path to achieving this vision has become more steep. The vision remains vitally important, but we may need to adjust our course to achieve it. In April 2020, 1.2 billion children in 186 countries face school closures. I think sometimes we need to stop and pause and just take into consideration this fact. 90% of the countries adopted digital or remote learning and 60% for pre-primary education. We became a united world, facing similar struggles. However, very quickly it was clear that where you lived had a big impact on the struggles that you had to face. Governments worldwide implemented different measures to contain the spread of COVID-19, including school closures, home isolation, quarantine, and community lockdown, all of which had secondary impacts on children and their households. 31% of school children worldwide, which is 463 million, could not be reached by remote learning. And 3/4 of these students came from rural areas or belonged to the poorest households. For our children in our school, they were lucky enough to have an online delivery of their education within one day of lockdown coming into place in March 2020. But these students face different challenges that none of us could even consider yet. I found a really interesting article about how the pandemic has affected schools and the education system in Saudi Arabia. So I'm going to share some of these facts with you. The availability of information and communication technologies makes it possible to continue instruction and learning when physical interactions are no longer possible, as was the case during the pandemic. However, both teachers and students need to be very familiar with these technologies and their use in order for them to be effective. 75% of teachers in Saudi Arabia felt that they could support student learning through the use of digital technology. During the period of school closures in Saudi Arabia, officials felt that students were learning, but less than they would have done in school, with a focus on a smaller number of subjects, a common perspective from education ministries around the world. Compared to other countries, teachers in Saudi Arabia had strong access to support from school leaders, peer networks, and training courses during the closure. The capacity of schools to innovate, adapt, and support staff varied from country to country and from school to school. Yet it is these school capacities that proved to be valuable assets for responding to crisis and uncertain times, as well as building resilience when facing challenges in delivering instruction. For me, as the head of teaching and learning in a school in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, one of the easiest challenges to address was the gaps from limited curriculum. This year, we have embarked on a much wider curriculum delivery, introducing more practical subjects, creative arts and languages, and giving a much richer experience to our students. Another challenge that we all were very aware of and are constantly trying to improve is the disengagement from certain students. This all comes down to teacher training and to thinking about our school strategic plan. And these issues could be seen in every school around the world. Globally, schools were closed fully for an average of 3.5 months since the onset of the pandemic, which is about 14 weeks. This figure has risen to 5.5 months, 22 weeks, in 2/3 of the academic year when localized school closures are taken into account. Governments have endeavoured to minimise countrywide closures, down from 190 countries at the peak in April 2020 to only 30 countries now, in favour of partial and/or local closures. Schools are now fully open in 101 countries. However, in Saudi Arabia, we are still facing the challenges of online learning. This is where we really need to stop and think about the hidden impact that this has had. So on a personal level, we've been working really hard with our local community to try and understand the challenges that our students have been facing. For example, we have a lot of global families in our school. So we didn't even realize for the first few months, but some of them were separated from their parents for long periods of time. Some of them still haven't been reunited with their family members since the peak of the lockdown. What we're trying to do now is to try and understand exactly the challenges that are being faced by individuals and by families in our community. I recently started the Parent-Teacher Association in our school, and I was really shocked to talk to some of the adults there and realize some of the social anxiety that they've been facing. Some of the challenges that they spoke to me about is the fact that because we're online still, they don't actually know the parents of the other children in the class. They find it very difficult to socialize or to understand, to give their children opportunities to play with friends, because our health is very important. And at Saudi Arabia, the Ministry of Health has put in some really important restrictions to make sure that we are looking after our families. However, that opens up lots of other challenges to us. And the social side of things really does impact the learning as well. We've had lots of new students join our school this year, and they've never met their peers. They never met their new teachers. They see them on a screen. It's like watching a TV. But that social side and the bond that's very important in the first few months of education in a school has really been missing. So at the moment, we have focused on the curriculum. We're very happy that we have started to improve that side of things for the children. But now we really need to start listening to them and start asking them questions and trying to understand what it is that they have been through and what it is they need to move forward. I recently undertook a survey with our students, and I thought that I'd know how they were going to respond. And I thought some of their responses were very surprising. So when I asked them if they wanted to come back to school in person, 76.2% of them said yes. But what was surprising is that 16.7% of the students told me that they weren't sure. And that told me that they have anxiety or that they have conflicting views about what that means. A lot of our children, especially the primary school children, are listening to adults' fears and they're listening to the news and they're not understanding exactly what it means. So for them, they're not sure what they need to do next. They're not sure what the best thing for them is. And that means that we really need to be supporting them on that side of things as well. Some of the questions I asked were, what, if any, have been your least favorite things about online learning? Again, very conflicting views. I had a lot of students who really enjoy the online learning, who feel that they can get more out of their learning because they don't have to travel to school. But their frustrations are actually very grown up. They have problems with their internet connection. They have problems with the fact that they have to be putting on their camera, that they have social anxiety, that they can't see each other in person. But one of the main problems that resounded with me was that the students feel that they don't get to know their teachers personally. They don't get to build those relationships. So while we're focusing on this fantastic curriculum delivery, which is something that has been really successful in Saudi Arabia, we need to also be considering how do we give them the other holistic approaches that they need in their lives? How do we make sure they receive those personal connections? When I ask them about which emotions best describe their feelings about coming back to school full-time in the future, a resounding 73.8% were very excited, but we also had 12% who were anxious, 12% who were scared. We had some who felt they were angry, which was an emotion I hadn't even given on the survey, but that children really wanted to express to us. We had children who feel shy, and we have children who feel that they should not come back ever, which to me sounds like there has been, so much talk about it and so much talk about safety that actually it's really impacted their future. And we need to help them. We need to help them become more resilient, and we need to prepare them for the fact that their lives are going to change again drastically. In order to do that, we need to listen to them more, and we do need to stop and we need to ask some questions. I know that for us in our school, and I'm sure it's very similar in schools all over Saudi Arabia, we've been working really tirelessly to continue to improve our delivery and to make sure that the students are not missing out on their learning. However, what we're beginning to understand is that for some of them, they're not ready for learning because they have so many other worries in their heads. They are missing family members. They're not traveling to places that they used to go to. And they're really anxious about interacting with other people. More questions that we asked were, do you think that you have changed as a student during the pandemic? This is something that dawned on me recently when I was giving a presentation to some future parents. I was talking about the fact that we've had to change as a school because the children that we're teaching now, they're not the same children as they were. They've all been on a journey through a lot of challenges, as we have as adults too. And we do need to start thinking about changing our provision to make sure that it's suiting the needs of the current climate and not what we were doing 2 years ago. So 64.3% of our students feel that they have changed as a student during the pandemic. And again, 31% are not sure. So there's a lot of uncertainty in their lives. When I ask them, what's the most important thing for you in relation to your education right now, which I think sometimes we forget to ask our children, one of our primary school children responded, the most important thing is that I receive a well-rounded and complete education, which is why going back to school is necessary. So in a way, I love to hear that confident voice that knows what they deserve. And it's very important that we help them understand that we know they deserve this, but we also are looking out for their safety. A lot of the children want to finish school and they want to go back to school. That's a resounding answer. In the meantime, we need to make sure that they're not just waiting for changes, that they're able to enjoy the learning that's happening at the moment and that we're giving them what they need right now. Some of the questions I asked them about how they have changed, some of them have answered, and again, this was primary school level, I've become more antisocial, but I've also become more dependent on technology. Again, a very grown-up response. Some of the children feel that they don't ask for as much help as they used to, that they maybe don't have the confidence to speak out when they need help. Again, when you're online, you're on a screen. You've got all eyes on you. It's slightly different to calling a teacher over to your table in a private area of the classroom. Some of the responses said that they were more careful, that they feel like they don't want to interact because of sickness, that they need to be better in school. They seem to be putting more on their shoulders and that they feel like they have missed out on a lot, so they're going to have to be even better to make up for it. All of these answers are, they're normal, but they're also a little bit shocking because actually I think they're very grown up, and I don't know that we talk about this enough in our education system. I don't know that we stop and discuss it enough. I think that we're so focused on making sure that curriculum is fantastic, making sure they've got maximum learning time, dealing with all of the technical issues. I can't hear you, you're on mute, your internet connection is low, that sometimes we forget that we really do need to talk about the emotional side of things, and developing these children as future leaders is going to be even harder now, because actually their resilience, their independence has taken a knock from the current circumstances. Some of the children have high aspirations for themselves. They want to learn how to read perfectly in Arabic. I think the word perfect came into the survey a lot, which to me made it sound like they have put a lot of responsibility on themselves, that they want to have good grades and they want their teachers to have happy expressions. And I think, again, that was a little bit sad for me, because it means that they can see the frustration that we as adults may sometimes have with technology, that they need to be amazing. They need to do amazing learning to become a perfect doctor, that they need to get back into real school and do lessons in person. I need face-to-face. A common theme is I need to be in school, I need to be with my friends, and I need to be meeting my teachers. Unfortunately, that's not possible at the moment. So what we need to be thinking about as educators is, what can we do to help with those feelings at this moment in time? How can we help with the transition that they will be going through in the future? Because it's not going to be easy to change. It's been over 18 months for some of these children, and they will need a slow transition to help them move forward. So our future does look very different. Learning technologies are characterized by a rapid pace of change. Continuous in-service training is paramount. In our school, that's what we've been really focused on, is trying to upskill our teachers constantly, not just in the first few weeks of the lockdown, even though I think teachers in Saudi Arabia did absolutely amazing, because they were so quick to provide an online platform to our children, to learn how to deliver things in great ways, to make sure that we had interactive lessons and that children were engaged. But it's also now about focusing not just on the academic side of things, but on the social skills and the mental health of our children. The pandemic is a crisis for today's children. The fallout may follow them for the rest of their lives. And I thought the quote about our future leaders being the lost generation is very important. Another side of things that we need to look at is our own well-being. A lot of teachers and educators have been through a lot, not just from their family side of things, but from the fact that they've had to deliver in a completely new way. It's been very stressful. It's taken a toll on us. But we need to be looking after ourselves and looking after our teams to make sure that we're able to look after our children. And that takes pause. It takes sometimes stepping back and having a look at what we're doing and asking some questions that we may not have been asking. I think if I could recommend anything to anybody, it's to ask your community how they're doing and ask them what they want. Starting up the Parent Teacher Association, even though it's not in person, has really highlighted some things to me, and I found out some of the challenges that our community have been facing that I wasn't aware of. For me, as an Irish person working in Saudi Arabia, I've had a really interesting insight, because I have a lot of family and friends who are teachers in Ireland. I trained as a teacher in the UK, and now I'm teaching in Saudi Arabia. And I can see how different those communities have dealt with the pandemic and how different the education system has been moving. So we need to be thinking about, yes, the system of the government and the education system in Saudi Arabia. We need to talk about our local communities, but we really also need to be looking at the individuals, because every individual family has gone through things in a very what questions we should be focusing on, how they're feeling about things. And we really need to be thinking about from a very long period of time in our online learning to a face-to-face, which is not going to be an easy transition for anybody, adults or children. So really, this is about just highlighting the fact that we need to focus on the holistic side of things, on the children as a whole. And we need to understand that our future leaders are probably not going to be the same type of leaders that we thought they were going to be 2 years. Potential, we're going to have to adapt our delivery and adapt our way of thinking. Thank you very much for listening to the presentation. I'm very happy to answer some questions now. And I'm very, very glad that I was invited to this school summit, because I think this is a really important, critical time for us. And the fact that we're taking this time to share our experiences and to give insights into some of the things that we're facing, I think as a united front, it will be great for moving forward. I'm just going to have a look at the chat now and see if we have some questions. Okay, so for the first time, parents have been given a window into not just their children's progress, but into what and how they learn. How can schools make sure there is very effective and constructive communication between teachers and parents? So, as a new leader of a school this year, this was one of my biggest challenges. I've had a lot of feedback from parents this year because the parents have been seeing the teaching, personally in their living room day to day. And I think that feedback's been valuable. And I think we've built some really good relationships. I think it's really important that we make sure that we don't lose that, because as we transition face to face, it will be a transition for the parents too. And they're used to being very involved in their child's education now. So what we will be doing, which is what we did previously, is making sure that we provide open classrooms to parents and making sure that we have coffee mornings for parents and that we keep our communities involved in the learning. But I think it's also about speaking to the parents now and supporting them with the transition as well. It's not just about the teachers and the students, it's a whole community thing. So I think that the communication between parents is very, very valuable. Also, sometimes we have to help our parents understand that we are educators and we have been through a lot of training. And yes, we absolutely value parent feedback, but every family situation is different. So I find that what suits one parent in one class might be very different to what another parent wants, and you can't actually give everybody what they want all of the time. So I think it's a little bit of diplomacy as well, but making sure that we help our parents feel listened to, because they are very important stakeholders in our community, and it's very important that they do feel part of the journey. Thank you for that question. That was a great question. In the current situation, schools need to be agile in their approach and response. How can schools make sure acting fast should not mean that the fundamentals of strategic planning are forgotten? I think that's very important. And I think some of the things we've done have been very quick, and there have been positives to that because we've made sure that, the children haven't had huge gaps in their learning. But yes, I agree with you completely. And we've worked a lot on that in our school recently. And it's also very difficult because we're strategically planning for a future that we're a little bit unsure of. So even over the summer, I spent a lot of time with my senior leadership planning for this year, thinking I would have all the students back in school, and finding out only a few days before school started that actually that wasn't the way. So all of a sudden we had to rethink things. So I think it is about being very creative. And I think you're absolutely right. It is about making sure that you don't forget to strategically plan. Even though things will have to change, there's some core values that you're going to have to stick to. And I think for us this year, it was about, last year we did a limited curriculum, and I understood the thinking behind that, and we did deliver our core subjects very well. And this year, our plan was to deliver a much wider curriculum. When we found out that we were going to continue online, we made sure that we didn't let that drop. It took us some time, but we made sure that we did that in an online platform, and we stuck by our vision. And I think that's what it comes down to. It's making sure that you still are true to your vision. Yes, you may have to react and you may have to make changes quickly, but I think you also need to stand by what you believe in and make sure that you are planning for the future of your school and for your students. Great question. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate it. It was lovely to get a chance to talk to everyone, and I really enjoyed the questions and the feedback. So I'm wishing everyone the very best moving forward, and I would just say keep asking those questions.
A session full of learning was with us. Thank you so much for sharing your inputs, and I personally believe learning never stops.